Hi everyone and welcome to the channel, and I'm here for a ranking video for you guys. Now for this ranking, we're going to rank the studio albums from the legendary progressive rock band King Crimson. Now I think King Crimson is a very great band, and this band has never released a bad album, so this ranking was not that difficult, but I can probably imagine some albums and the placements of them might change throughout time depending on my mood or whatever, and that's usually the case. I think, you know, sometimes it really does depend on your mood, on how you feel about a certain album and whatnot, but I think that this is a pretty solid ranking overall. Now, we're not going to include any live albums or compilations or anything like that. And I do have almost all the studio albums from King Crimson. I'm just missing 2 of them, and you'll know what those are when we get there. So let's go ahead and get started with what I have at the bottom. Now, what I have at the bottom, I think is at the bottom for most people, and that would be the Construction of Light. I mean, yeah, it's a good album, but it's just not as memorable as their other albums, and it's just not as captivating or as interesting to listen to as the other albums of theirs and the other songs that they've done. And yeah, this album, it's good, but it's just obviously not one of their best, and I do think it is their weakest. So next, we got The Power to Believe, one of their heavier albums, and I believe that this was also their final studio album as well. So yeah, I think it's a strong album, even though it's you know, in the second half of the ranking, I still think it's a very good album. It's got the song Level 5, and it's also got Eyes Wide Open, which are really good songs, but not one of their best, but I do think it's a very strong album. And, you know, again, they've never released a bad album, so even though this album is this low in the ranking, I still think it's a very strong album. So, The Power to Believe. So next, we got the other King Crimson CD that I don't have in my collection yet, which I will eventually get, the 2 that I'm missing, obviously, Construction of Light and the album that's up next, which is Beat. Beat, I do think is a good album, but again, it's just not one of their best, and it does have the song Heartbeat, which I think is a pretty good track, so yeah, not one of their best, but I think it's good overall. So next, we got 3 of a Perfect Pair. I think it's a good album. Now, this is one of those albums where I do think, you know, the first half is a little bit stronger than the second half, but the whole album is pretty good overall. But I mean, the title track is, as of now, my favorite song on the album. I mean, that might change throughout time as I give this album more listens. I will admit I don't really, you know, listen to this one very much when I listen to King Crimson. I just would rather listen to the albums that are in front of it, but I do think that this is a very strong album for sure, and this is, of course, in their 80s time, and I think it's a good album overall. It does have the title track, of course, which is a really great song, so yeah. 3 of a Perfect Pair. It's a good album, but just not one of their best. So next we got Thrac. In my opinion, kind of an underrated album from these guys. I mean, I don't really see a lot of attention for this album, but the album, it definitely has a lot of really great tracks, of course. I mean, you got Dinosaur, Walking on Air, People, One Time, just to name a few tracks. But yeah, very good album. I mean, I really dig this one. I think it's great. So, Thrac. So next in the ranking, we got Discipline. In my opinion, the best of their 80s work. I mean, it's of course got really great songs like Elephant Talk, Frame by Frame, and let's see if I can pronounce this, Matt Kudasol. I probably didn't say that correctly, but yeah. I mean, this album has some really great songs on it, so yeah, I mean, Frame by Frame actually might be my favorite song of their 80s work, and it's definitely one of the best songs on the album. I mean, there's a lot to like about that song, and yeah, so Discipline, definitely a very strong album. I think it's a great album overall. So next we got Lizard. I see that this album is considered underrated as well, and yeah, I can kind of agree with that. I think it's a really good album, of course. I mean, you got Indoor Games, Circus, and the title track. I mean, definitely a great album. Not their best work, but I do think it's very good, though. I mean, it's, you know, it's proggy, and it's just musically intriguing, and yeah, I think it's a great album overall. So, Lizard. So next we got Islands. Definitely a strong album for sure. Not their best work, but still a very good album. I mean, there's some really great songs on here. I mean, of course, you got The Letters, Ladies of the Road, and the title track, Islands. I mean, definitely a very good album. There's not really much to say about it, but it's just, you know, very proggy and also very intriguing to listen to. And yeah, definitely a very strong album. So, Islands. So next, we got Starless and Bible Black. Very strong album for sure. I mean, a lot of really great songs like The Great Deceiver, Lament, We'll Let You Know, The Night Watch. There's a lot of really great songs on here. I mean, The Night Watch, maybe one of my favorite King Crimson songs. Actually, I would say it probably is. I really love that song. Just the intriguing melodies, the instrumentation, the vocals. I mean, it all sounds pretty good in this song. I mean, I think it's a very quality track, and yeah, so definitely a great album. Starless and Bible Black. So now we got 4 left. So next we got In the Wake of Poseidon. Definitely one of their best, at least I would say. I mean, there's just a lot to like about this album, of course. I mean, you got Cat Food, the title track. I think the title track's definitely one of the best tracks on the album. And yeah, Devil's Triangles. Definitely a lot of really great tracks. So In the Wake of Poseidon, definitely a very strong album and definitely a classic. So next we got their album Red. Definitely a strong album for sure. I know that this is considered the best for a lot of people, or you know, a top 3 best. Obviously, it's at number 3 for me. And if you're wondering, yes, I did take the wrapping off of this. I just put the wrapping inside, or the CD case inside, just to keep it in good condition, because I usually try to take care of my CDs like that. But yeah, so very strong album for sure. Of course, the title track, Fallen Angel, One More Red Nightmare, Starless, excellent song. One of the best King Crimson songs of all time, easily. I mean, definitely a very strong album and a classic for sure. So, Red. So next, we got Larks, Tongues, and Aspic. I know that this is considered a top 3 for a lot of people as well. It's definitely one of their best for sure. I mean, of course, you got both parts of Larks. Both are very good. Exiles, Easy Money. I mean, just no going wrong with this album. It's a classic. I mean, if you like prog rock, check out this album. It's excellent. So, Larks, Tongues, and Aspic. So, at number 1, I'm going to have to go with In the Court of the Crimson King. Yes, this is a favorite for a lot of people as well. This album is, I'll be honest, a 10 out of 10 album. I think it's a flawless album, just about. I mean, there's not a weak song on this album, but of course you got classics like 21st Century Schizoid Man, I Talk to the Wind, Epitaph. Epitaph is probably one of my favorite King Crimson songs, if not my favorite. I love that song. I mean, it's very emotion-driven, and the instrumentation is fantastic, and the vocal work is something that's worth pointing out as well. But, yeah, of course, In the Court of the Crimson King title track, another really great song from these guys. So, In the Court of the Crimson King, that's what's coming up at number 1 in my ranking. I think it's their best album, and I think there's a lot of people that can agree that this is their best. Very strong album, and it's basically a masterpiece. So there you have it. That is my ranking of the King Crimson discography. Let me know what you guys think. Are you a fan of King Crimson? How would you rank their discography? If you're not a fan of King Crimson and would like to check them out, feel free to let me know. I can let you know which albums you want to start out with, or if you're just looking to check out songs for now, I can give you some pointers with songs as well. But just feel free to let me know your thoughts. So on that note, thanks for watching. Have a nice day and take care.